The graphics card is responsible for handling all the rendering tasks that are too intense for the CPU alone. Think rendering video or playing games. The best graphics card depends on what you need. Should you have a full-HD monitor and only play some lighter games occasionally, you could get away with buying a cheaper GPU. If you're going all out with 4K gaming and want the very best, a flagship GPU will likely be a better choice. We've tested a whole host of graphics cards to see which is the best GPU for gaming. Before proceeding to the video, do like the video, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get started. In this video, we will review the top 6 best graphics card in 2023. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 Ti is the best graphics card in our opinion. It strikes a great balance between performance and price, allowing you to spend more elsewhere or save. Being an RTX 40 series GPU, this card uses the same Ada Lovelace architecture as the mightily impressive NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090, the best gaming card available. While not as potent, the RTX 4070 does come with 12 GB of GDDR6X RAM for storing all your game data. This makes it a fine weapon for 4K gaming when DLSS is enabled, and the rest of the specifications support this. 5,888 shader units are more than enough to tackle some high-fidelity gaming, and so too is the 248 GHz boost clock speed rating. Then there's the exceptional ray tracing support with all RTX 40 GPUs from NVIDIA, this one included. Couple that with DLSS, which works like dark magic, and you've got one impressive graphics card that's more in line with what most people are willing to spend on a GPU. AMD Radeon RX 7600. The AMD Radeon RX 7600 is here to bring AMD RDNA 3 to the under $300 segment, and it's got plenty of performance despite its lower price tag. Its 1080p performance is absolutely fantastic for the price, even giving the NVIDIA RTX 3060 Ti 12 GB a run for its money. Its 1440p performance is also pretty decent, considering that the card only has 8 GB of RAM and a 128-bit memory bus. In terms of gaming performance, you can easily get 60 FPS on all of the best PC games at 1080p, with most of those running on the highest graphics settings. For more demanding games like Cyberpunk 2077, there might need to be some settings tweaks, but it's still definitely doable, especially with AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution. Its ray tracing performance is still behind NVIDIA last-gen mid-range cards. Radeon RX 6600. The Radeon RX 6600 takes everything good about the 6650 XT below, then scales it back slightly. It's about 20% slower overall, and factoring in DXR games, it just barely edges past the RTX 3050. Discount DXR as you should with this level of hardware, and it ends up being more like 25% faster than the 3050 and just slightly behind the RTX 3060 and ARCA 750. Prices have dropped as low as $179 now, making this an extremely attractive option if you're on a budget. AMD $329 MSRP was rather high at launch, but with Ethereum mining dead, there's a glut of mid-range GPUs available. Mid-range graphics cards are a competitive arena, and the RX 6600 goes up against both the RTX 3050 as well as previous generation RTX 20 series GPUs. It ends up delivering near RTX 2070 performance in our testing, at least in non-ray tracing scenarios. With ray tracing enabled, however, it struggles badly, barely averaging 30 FPS in our DXR test suite at 1080p medium. If you're not worried about ray tracing, the RX 6600 definitely warrants a look. AMD Infinity Cache does wonders for what otherwise looks like a somewhat underpowered GPU, and the card only needs about 130 watts, far less than most competing GPUs. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090. The NVIDIA RTX 3090 is still one of the best graphics cards out there, even though it is a last-gen GPU. With a whopping 24 GB of RAM, no game or, more importantly, heavy graphics project will suffer performance issues. In fact, we were even able to get some 8K performance at 60 FPS out of the 3090. That said, it is an incredibly expensive unit, and quite large too, so it will probably be too much GPU for most users. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090 is, in essence, a replacement for the Titan, so it's meant more for the creative user tackling intensive 3D and video rendering than for the avid gamer. Even so, it comes with a massive reduction in price compared to the Titan, making it a bargain for creative professionals used to shelling out a lot of money for the tools of their trade. Intel Arc A770 Limited Edition. Intel is now in the game of making graphics cards. The best GPU from Intel right now is the Arc A770 Limited Edition, which isn't actually limited in availability, but is what Intel refers to as Founders Edition cards. Intel didn't launch its new GPUs to take on the best graphics cards from NVIDIA and AMD, and we saw this in our testing of the Intel Arc A770. It's still quite the capable machine for 1440p gaming, however. This basically means it's good for 1080p and 1440p gaming. For creative work, the A770 is well equipped. It has support for HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 2.0 external displays, and was one of the first desktop graphics cards to have a hardware AV1 encoder. Even though it's a reference design, the A770 Limited Edition runs quietly, even with a fairly high power draw of 225 watts. Intel didn't overpromise, however, and the Arc A770 does perform about as well as an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060, all while being affordable. It's well priced, especially compared to the latest AMD and NVIDIA graphics cards. AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX. The AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX had a lot to prove when it hit the scene at the end of 2022. But it succeeds brilliantly in being the most powerful gaming GPU on the market for under $1,000, while outperforming NVIDIA's RTX 4080 overall, which costs 20% more. The new second-gen Ray accelerators in the RX 7900 XTX makes 4K gaming on ultra settings with ray tracing a reality on an AMD card, something that the last flagship AMD card, the RX 6950 XT, couldn't quite accomplish, including falling behind the NVIDIA RTX 4000 series in terms of ray tracing, while still beating out the RD performance of the NVIDIA RTX 3090, and some uneven creative workload performance. But overall, this is the one graphics card we would recommend to just about anybody who are looking to finally upgrade their GPU after years of graphics card shortages. Conclusion: the age-old question of whether NVIDIA or AMD is the best brand for graphics cards will likely never go away. Right now, both GPU manufacturers are basically on equal ground, and what will ultimately be right for you probably won't be right for someone else. Generally, if you like ray tracing, NVIDIA will probably have the edge for you, and in the past AMD was better for people on a budget.